Shalom. I'd like to start out by giving all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakach, Wadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of the Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elect of Israel. This is the Mayim in Atlanta, and I've got this article pulled up from Zero Hedge. It says cracks appear in NATO unity ahead of Alaska summit on Ukraine territorial concessions. And there's a bit of a argument or back and forth between NATO members on the concessions, the land concessions to give Russia so that they can end this war in Ukraine. This is a recent article, but getting into it, it says Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk, ahead of NATO's largest and most well-armed eastern flank country, expressed both concern and cautious optimism on Monday ahead of the upcoming Trump-Putin summit set in Alaska, focused on the war in Ukraine. Tusk emphasized hope based on Washington's assurance that it was consult its European allies before the talks. The U.S. has committed to consulting with its European partners ahead of the Alaska meeting. Tusk told a press conference, "I will wait to see the outcome of the talks between Presidents Trump and Putin. I have many concerns, but also some hope." But he also laid out the West, including European countries, will not accept Russian demands, which simply amount to the seizure of Ukrainian territory. And you should already know that's what Russia is not going to back down from. They've fought for and claimed these territories and have already made them part of Russia, so they're not going to just give them up, especially with the blood that was shed to get them. Since Tusk further stressed that European leaders were united in their stance on peace negotiations, insisting that Ukraine must be actively included in any talks. But the reality and elephant in the room is that Moscow is not going to sign onto a final peace settlement and halt its special military operation from nothing short of territorial concessions. It is not going to give up its conquered territories in the Donbass, which is already declared part of the Russian Federation. For Poland and our partners, it is clear borders cannot be altered by force. Tusk said Russia must not gain from its aggression against Ukraine. And so you can see this is driving a wedge between NATO members and trying to end this war, in which they should be even more inclined to have it in, since it's in their backyard, it's in Europe, but they don't want to let Russia benefit from invading a country at the same time, because that'll set a bad precedent. But moving on, it says the rest of European leadership clearly agrees with them. As we work towards a sustainable and just peace, international law is clear. All temporarily occupied territories belong to Ukraine. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas has said a sustainable peace also means that aggression cannot be rewarded. And yet, on Sunday, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte actually, for the first time, opened the door a little on the question of territorial concessions. Because if they want to end this war, just let Putin keep what he's taken, and the war will be over. And especially stop giving money to Ukraine, because they can't win. But they're going to keep on because they want to expand NATO. It says in the end, the issue of the fact that the Russians are controlling at this moment factually a part of Ukraine has to be on the table. In any peace talks after the Alaska summit, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said on CBS on Sunday. Rutte said Ukraine's Western backers can never accept that in a legal sense, but he suggested that they might tactically acknowledge Russian control. He compared it to the way that the U.S. hosted the diplomatic missions of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania from 1940 to 1991. acknowledging that the Soviet Union was controlling those territories, but never accepting it in a legal sense. He explained, when it comes to the entire issue of territory, when it comes to recognition, for example, perhaps in a future agreement that Russia actually controls part of Ukrainian territory, that must be an actual recognition, not a de jure political recognition. And de jure means by law. So, this is the last little bit. Does this reflect Trump's thinking too? If there's any hope whatsoever of making headway with Putin in Alaska, this will indeed have to be on the table. Otherwise, there will be no point in talking, and the whole meeting will prove futile in terms of finding a settlement. Still, what Russia will come away with is a big diplomatic win regardless, just in the optics alone, and the fact that isolated Putin is given a face-to-face bilateral summit with Trump. And so, not saying this is the end of NATO or anything like that, but these little things add up over time, like this war in Ukraine and Trump trying to say he could have this ended. We also have that pipeline that was blown up, I guess, about 2 years ago. And you also have the issue in the state of Israel going on. And these nations are starting to think about themselves and how they're close to this war and these other wars that are going on, and they're trying to think of themselves. And there's even I know a few months ago they were trying to rearm themselves because a lot of NATO countries don't even have armies, but they were rearming and trying to stack up their munitions so that they could separate from the U.S. But this is just something else that's going into it, just not seeing eye to eye on this. They don't want to give up anything, but it seems like over here the Babylonians actually might be cool with giving up some territory. But either way, we know that NATO does not last. It becomes divided and ends up nuking America along with Russia, or some of the countries. I don't know which ones, because that's not said prophetically, but we do know that the beast will hate the whore, make her desolate, and burn her with fire. But I'm going to start out here in the book of Mark 3, chapter 3 and 26. And it says, "And if Satan is at war with himself, and there is division in him, he will not keep his place, but will come to an end." And the Edomites, which control NATO, so-called white people, including the Small Hatters, are the children of Satan, the adversary. And there's division between them. We're seeing it here in Babylon a lot, but there's also, on a global scale, division between NATO, these NATO allies. And them dividing against themselves shows that their end is coming near. It says he will not keep his place, and they're right there at the top of the social hierarchy, but will come to an end. Their end is near. We are at the end of Esau's world, so we should be looking for this division between the Edomites. Going over to Revelation chapter 13 and verse 1, it says, "And I stood," just to show what the beast is. It's a power structure. It's not some antichrist as Hollywood and the Christians will tell you it is. It's a power structure, an empire. And this is part of the Edomite empire. So Revelation 13 and 1, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise out of the sea." This isn't talking about an ocean or the Mediterranean Sea or anything like that. It's talking, the sea refers to people, multitudes, nations, and tongues. It's talking about people. So it came out of the people, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And this is Esau's power structure, which started with the Greeks and then the Romans, Germania Major, Germania Minor, Spain, France, Britain, and Babylon. Those were those 7 heads. Or Slovakia, take back Babylon. It's Greece, Rome, Germania Major, Germania Minor, Spain, France, Britain, Slovakia. And 10 horns, these are the vassal states. But those 7 I named go into the 7 heads, and then the 10 horns go into the vassal states of Rome. And upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast, his power structure, which I saw, was like unto a leopard. And I named Greece first, because this is where Esau got his foothold on the world stage. And Alexander conquered the known world at that time so quickly that he's epitomized by shown as a leopard. And this is going into Greece as a whole. And his feet are as the feet of a bear, which is the Russians, because the Russians end this thing. They end NATO. They're going to have their allies their allies, and they're going to eventually shoot nuclear missiles onto America, which is Babylon the Great. It's also known as the whore in Revelation. And even now, this bear, Russia, the Russian bear, is putting a wedge between the allies, which is another reason for choosing Revelation 13 and 2, or for the Lord having it chosen. In his mouth as the mouth of a lion going into Britain. You also have the city of London over there where finances are controlled. And this is a area where Esau was able to gain a lot of territory around the world through Britain. They had the saying, the sun never sets on the British Empire, because they had territory all around the world. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority, going into Rome, but it's also going to the elite, because the elite are the ones pulling the strings of this great beast. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast, because this was Rome, and Rome fell and rose back up again as NATO and the EU, with America being that whore that rides the back of this beast. So we went to the beast, understanding what the beast is, but Revelation 17 and 16, because all that division that's between them is going to exacerbate and increase all the way to where some of these NATO nations are going to be joining up with Russia and firing onto America, onto Babylon the Great. And who knows what Babylon will do, but they're going to do something that requires them to be set on fire with nukes. But Revelation 17 and verse 16, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, so these different vassal states, these shall hate the whore. The whore is America. It's Babylon the Great. And who knows what they're going to do, what Babylon's going to do, but it's going to do something that's going to be so low down that they're going to send their nukes onto America. And shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. America will be burnt up. And that'll be the end of this Edomite, this age of the Edomites, the age of so-called white people and the small hatters. This is their end. It's going to go out in nuclear fire, and the ones that pass on are going to be reincarnated into the kingdom as slaves, as little slave babies. And that'll be that for them, for wickedness having a reign in this earth. But Lord willing, that was edifying. Lord willing, this division keeps picking up between these Edomites, between the house of Satan. And Lord willing, Yahushua comes back very, very soon. So, I'd like to give all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rakach Wadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of the Great Millstone. Shalom to the elect of Israel. Shalom.